Welcome to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Thanks so much, everyone, for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community, mentorship, and, of course, learning. I'm your host, Dave Nava. I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce and a military trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host or co-host sometimes to take part in the conversation so that we can leverage their experience, their expertise, and their unique perspectives. The focus for tonight's session is solution engineering best practices. So, if you've ever wondered how to lead effective discovery sessions or how to give amazing presentations and demos, this is the session for you. I'd like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host for tonight's session, Iman Maghroori. Iman is a distinguished solution engineer at Salesforce, which is the title given to solution engineers who make a sustained and significant contribution to the solution engineering practice. As such, he supports the highest volume of Salesforce customers. He has a customer-facing community group called Iman's Webinars, with over 1,000 people asking him questions and an open office hours every month. It is great to have you co-hosting office hours with me. Iman, welcome. Do you want to take a moment and kind of introduce yourself further and share your Salesforce story?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Iman Maghroori, solution engineer at Salesforce. This August will make my 15th year here at Salesforce, so quite a long time at one company. I've not been in the military before, so I just want to raise my hand and say I'm not a military guy, so I can't really speak to you on that front. I got my job at Salesforce straight out of college, so I actually had kind of an interesting little twisty path. I thought I was going to be a consultant, and I got hired to be a consultant, and day one, I'm in orientation, and there's a knock on the door, and they pull me out, and I go into a conference room, and they let me know that job's gone. And I got two choices. Today's my last day, or some other job that they just created called a demo engineer. I didn't know what that was. I was down for it, so I took the demo engineering role, and I was one of the first 5 demo engineers at Salesforce. And our job was to go follow along every solution engineer, listen to their discovery calls with customers, build the demos for them to free them up to work on more deals for more customers. I did that for a little while, and then I became a small business SE myself, then mid-market and GB level. So I went up segment there. And at some point, I won some award for like #1 SE in the company. And I was like 20 something. And there were no more promotions to have. I was at the top of the SE game. And it felt really weird to be the #1 guy, because they won't make you the #1 guy twice in a row. You can't be the #1 guy 3 times. I mean, that felt like a weird pinnacle, you know? So I switched gears and I went to be a sales guy. So I just was a solution engineer forever. And I jumped over and went to the sales side of the house, and I hated it. I mean, I hit my number, I went to club, but I did not like that job. So I talked to my old SE leaders, and they were like, well, Iman, come back and be an SE. You were great at it. We'd love to have you. And I told them, I'm done. I'm done being the front line, do the grind. I've done that for a long time. I don't want to do that anymore. And they said, well, you won't. Come back and figure it out. I'm like, what do you mean figure it out? And they're like, just come back to being an SE and you tell us what you do. So I went back to being an SE, and I tried just jumping on a bunch of big deals. But, it's a big company and a lot of big deals are kind of scattered everywhere. That wasn't really the right move. So I figured, I can build the demo. I can give the demo. I can talk about pricing. I can kind of do the whole sales cycle on my own. What if I just do that? So I sent out an invite to a couple thousand people and held my own webinar, and 1,000 customers showed up. I had an event and it went well, and revenue fell out the other end. And so people asked me to do it again. Did it again the next month, and then the next month. And then, hey, I can do more than 1 a month. So that turned into 1 every week, 2 a week, and so on. And now my job has changed. So now I run a weekly webinar series here at Salesforce. I support all of our North American customers, and I generally create content for videos for the YouTube channel or for our sales team to use throughout the sales cycle. And I do some other things at Salesforce, like administering demo environments and trials for our customers. But typically, at a high level, my job is content creator, presenter to customers. I'm going to stop.
No, thank you so much for sharing your story. what I wanted to do briefly before we go into Iman's presentation, he's got a few slides he wants to share with you to kind of open the floor for how to do discovery and some best practices. I'd like to, if you're joining for the first time, welcome. I always like to briefly go over the purpose of these office hours before we do open the floor for questions and discussion. And so these sessions are intended to be an informal get-together for gathering with not only military trailblazers, allies as well, everyone's welcome. You do not have to be military affiliated, to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics so that as a group, we can help each other achieve our professional development and our career related goals. And so for this next hour, this is your opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Everyone on the call is encouraged to step up, and you can either ask or answer questions from your perspective. And of course, as we all know, that will add diversity of experience to the answers given. As always, please do keep an eye on the chat window during tonight's session. As you've probably already seen, I shared a link to connect with Iman on LinkedIn. I'm also going to be sharing some resources that my awesome volunteers put together throughout the week. Regarding questions, if you want to ask a question at any point during today's session, please feel free to do so. This is your session, right? If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, no worries. You can also post it in chat, and I'll do my best to keep an order on first come, first serve for chat and or raising your hand in the application. As a final comment, tonight's session is being recorded. And so if you'd like to share an attribution-free comment or ask an attribution-free question, let me know before you begin speaking, and that way I can make sure it's edited out of that final content. Much harder to do later once my volunteer video producer finishes the product. So with that in mind, I will turn it back over to Iman for his presentation.
All right, thank you. All right, everybody, we're just gonna do this. I'm gonna hit the ground running. A lot of slides, but we're gonna get through it real fast. And then at the end, if you got any questions, feel free to ask. But I've been giving presentations at Salesforce for a very long time, and you know that saying like, "No big deal." It's no big deal. My presentations were for big deals. They were for very big deals, and so doing presentations where it is a big deal adds a lot of stress. And when there are a lot of people that want to watch and see you do dry runs and you do it over and over again, you kind of build this muscle memory of what does a good presentation look like and how do you get there. So I'm going to give you all just a couple things to think about in the future as you create your presentations. Hopefully it helps you regardless of if it's a technical demo or just a presentation to teammates. I'm hoping this is helpful. So here we go. So, everyone can see my screen, I take it? Yeah? Before we go any further at all, right? Before we even start, I just want you to stop. And I want you to think about the one thing. What is the one thing we need for your presentation to work? You only need this one thing. And if you have it, your presentation is pretty much guaranteed to be a success. And if you don't have it, it's guaranteed to fail. Now, this is rhetorical. Don't actually answer. But think about it for a second. What do you need? You need their attention. You need them paying attention. Right now, there's like 30 of you on this call. And how many of you have my screen behind an email? How many of you are checking the news? How many of you are doing anything but listening to the content I'm delivering? If you are not paying attention to this presentation, then nothing I say matters. Nothing I do is landing. All right. So you need to make sure that they're paying attention, and your audience for the most part are stressed out, they're hungry, they're busy, they got things they're worrying about, they got family conversations, personal stuff you're not even aware of. And guess what? Your presentation, your technical presentation is not awesome. It's not exciting. I do presentations on Salesforce, and as much as I think it's cool, I wouldn't be excited to get on a presentation and see someone demo Excel to me for an hour. Would you? I mean, that's not exciting, right? So when it's your presentation, it is your responsibility to make it a good one in an otherwise sea of mediocrity. Think of every webinar you've ever joined. How many of those do you actually pay attention to? I'll tell you right now, I'm the worst person you could ever present to. And it's because I think very quickly and I get bored very quickly. And so when I sit there and I watch other people present, I tune out and I start checking my email and I'll just watch the recording later. So what we're here to talk about is really how do you maximize the engagement with your content? How do you make sure that the audience cares about what you have to say? I would argue that you should show them the cool things that matter. It's got to be cool and it's got to matter. right? It's that intersection of the stuff that you do that's actually interesting and what they want that actually matters. You show them anything outside of the middle of that Venn diagram and you are wasting everybody's time. So great, how do you know what the cool stuff is that matters? How do you know what matters? Because if they don't care, guess what? It doesn't matter. If they don't care, it's not a feature. So how do you figure it out? Well, for most presentations, there's kind of two ways to give these demos. One is the pointing style presentation. The other is a painting style presentation. Okay. So if you do a pointing demo or a presentation, it probably sounds like this. And here you can see, and over there you can see. And here we have, and over there we have. That's not a compelling demo. That's not really that interesting. We call that a harbor cruise because everyone gets on the same boat and everyone sees the Sydney Opera House on the right and on the bridge over there is on the left. That is not an engaging, customized presentation. If anything, you just took an hour to read a feature list to people. This is not a good use of anybody's time, especially a solution engineer who's a resource that you need to more or less distribute intelligently within your organization. So having them just sit there and read features out loud is not great. What you fundamentally want to do is explain how you're going to change their future. All right. You need to paint that picture of what it looks like when they use your solution. And it's not just here is this and that is there. You need to get people excited about it. So if you want to get people excited about your solution and you're standing there and you don't even know what to present, you could build anything. How do you go from nothing to the right presentation? The exact right thing where they all work together and you're showing all the right levels of detail. How do you do that? Right? There are different parts that you would talk to. There are different parts that you would build or actually show. Where would you spend your time in your presentation? I think a lot of people mess that up specifically. Personally, I'm a fan of when there's nothing else that you can remove from your presentation, not when everything has been added to the presentation. The best presentation is the one where all the unnecessary junk is stripped away. Right? A lot of people do it wrong. They add up too much unnecessary stuff. So there's this concept called the Uncanny Valley. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not, but check it out. And this actually exists, and it's typically something you see in computer animation. It's usually an animation thing. And the idea here is that if you just draw a circle, it's a circle. No one cares about the circle. I don't react or feel anything about the circle. But what if I put a happy face on it? All of a sudden, hey, that's a happy little circle. What if I make it more and more and more realistic? Well, guess what? People will like it more and more. They will relate to it more and more. But then something weird happens. When it becomes so realistic, your brain does a thing where it stops noticing that it's a cartoon and it's fun, and it starts just seeing all the parts where it's not correct. It starts seeing all the issues that make it fall short of perfection, and it's actually quite off-putting. It's actually uncanny, kind of creepy, right? I would argue these dolls that you're seeing have a lot of detail. Do they make them good? Does detail make something good? Does realism make it better? I'd argue it doesn't, right? Think about these movies, Pixar movies. Does Finding Nemo look like a real fish? Do you think a marine biologist out there could point out some issues with those fish? Yes, absolutely. They did not look real. Did it matter? Did it ruin your enjoyment of the movie at all? No. So the trick is to figure out what content matters and what details are just unnecessary details. And what happens is that when you have solution engineers or people presenting, they create a detail demo. They spend inordinate amounts of time adding more things to the presentation to make it more realistic, and you will like it less. The visionary demo, where I ignore a lot of the details, will actually be a more inspiring presentation. So the presenter will spend more time building out more things to make a better demo, and it's really just their insecurity. They're insecure. They don't know what to present, so they'll present everything. If you don't know what to present, presenting everything makes your presentation worse. It does not make it safer or better or more robust. People present everything because they go, well, they can't yell at me. I did the whole demo. They saw everything. Wrong answer. More is not better. All right. If anything, it shows me that you don't know what to show. Because every single thing you put in a presentation is one more nit that can be picked, one more thing that can cause confusion, one more thing that's wrong, one more thing that'll take you down that path that you don't need to go down. Look, the whole point of that presentation is to move the needle on some sales cycle or some project, move it forward. So you have 1 hour in that meeting with that customer to convince them, to sell them on whatever it is that you're there to talk about. Every one of these nits that's getting picked is taking time away from you getting closer to your objective. It's you wasting time. So what you should do is assume that you're demoing to a hostile audience. I assume every audience is hostile. I think you're all great, but I assume you're hostile. Okay. And so what does that mean? It means that I think you prefer my competitor. I think you're going to pick every nit. I think that you think you're right and I'm wrong. And I'm going to go into the presentation defensively. And if I can build a defensive presentation where every single thing I show you, I know has a value, then there are fewer nits for you to pick. So then how do you know? How do you know if this is real thing you should put in the presentation or if it's unnecessary detail that's just wasting time? The answer is you do discovery. You talk to them. You find out what that person cares about. And just like there's different ways to do demos, there are different flavors of discovery. Here's one, process-based discovery. And then what happens? Great. And then what? And then, and guess what? You got the whole process, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about an entire process. I don't even know why we tell people to walk through the whole process. What you should care about is the pain that they want to reduce and the gains that they want to add. That is what you focus on. What problems need to go away and what benefits do we want to see? Those are very rarely evenly distributed throughout the entire process. If you ask the whole process, you're going to spend your whole time going through the whole process, and the entire problem could have been in this part of the process or that part of the process. So process-based discovery is not the goal. I mean, think about when you go to a doctor. Does the doctor ask you everything you do all day from beginning to end? No, man. Hey, what hurts? My knee hurts. Great. When does your knee hurt? My knee hurts when I play golf. Have you tried? Right? They go right to the problem. You need to do that. You more or less need to be the doctor for their business. Listen to the pain. Think about the gain they want. And then that is where you do the professional part. Don't ask them to give you the solution. They don't know. They don't know what you could do. You know how many people come to Salesforce and think they know what we do? Very few of our customers can actually ask for the right solution. They're much better off telling me about their problem, which they're experts in, and then let me figure it out. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll talk to you and I'll find out your key objectives, whatever it is. Say it's 3 things. I'll take those 3 things. And then I think about it. I think about why those 3 things. What else could we do to help you with those 3 things? And I come back with more check boxes that you didn't give me. I will check all of your boxes and then I will add check boxes that you didn't even know we could do. I will add automation. I will add reporting. I will add mobile. I will come to the table with something you didn't ask for, because that shows that I understand your problem. I've thought of a solution, and that's actually where the thought leadership comes in. And believe it or not, that's where the differentiation shows up. Your customer is going to go and say the same thing to everybody else. And if everyone else just shows them what they want to see, you all look the same. That is why you differentiate by adding this additional value. That's why I hate demoing for RFPs. It doesn't make sense. Give everybody the same list, tell everybody to show you the exact same thing, and then try to figure out how they're different. Horrible way to evaluate solutions. So when you think about your presentation, you've done the discovery, you know the cool things you do, you know they matter. Does that thing go in your presentation or not? Well, I would ask you, so what? Who cares? And you better be able to answer that question. You better be able to answer, so what and who cares, for every single thing in your presentation. Does that click belong in your demo? So what? What would happen if it wasn't there? If I removed it, what part of your value prop breaks? What part of your story doesn't make sense? Why is it there? Justify it. Argue it. Who in the audience would care? If you don't know who in your audience would care and how it impacts the value proposition you're making, you are wasting time. That is unnecessary detail. So you do your discovery, you focus on the pain and gain, you so what, who cares, everything in your presentation, and then you refine and distill it. Don't duplicate things. Don't go over them over and over again. Get it down nice, clean, and crisp. And definitely don't save the best for last. This is not a murder mystery. Your executives don't need to hear the big aha moment at the very end. You know why? Because you're likely to lose them before the very end. Most people's attention spans are gone. They're fleeting. Hit them with the value prop up front. Melt their face up front. Give them all the goodness up front and hope they pay attention to the end. Don't withhold the amazing thing and then think you're going to slam it down at the end and have a big reveal. If anything, it will be really disappointing when they have already tuned out and missed the entire presentation. Okay? And for executives, my little tip here is to give them the old razzle dazzle. I give every executive demo twice. And I'll say it. When I do my demo to the C-suite, I'll say, I'm going to give you all the same demo twice. You're going to get it first in about 2 minutes. And I will not be taking any questions. And you're not going to get to ask me any questions. And then when it's done, I will give it to you in its full, slow, regular pace. And the reason I do that is I give people like a table of contents. I'll just have all my tabs up. They'll see the dashboard tab and I'll close it. They'll see the account contact tab. I'll close it. They'll see this report and I'll close it. And I'll just say, we're going to talk about accounts and how everything's in one place. Close the tab. Then we're going to talk about dashboards and how you can report on everything. Close the tab. So I will quickly give people a table of contents so they know when they care, they can pay attention. But at least, even if they are gone in the middle of the meeting, at least I gave them all the sexy sizzle up front. All right, and the last big thing I'm going to say is don't be uptight. Be you. Be personable. I call it the brother-in-law demo, okay? The brother-in-law presentation. No one has a better presentation from someone that gets tightened up and goes into just a boring lecture mode. People like to have conversations, interact with people that they like. So be likable. Don't be uptight, okay? Unless you're uptight, then pretend to be someone else. But being uptight in your presentations very rarely makes your presentations more engaging. People feel like if they read a script and nail the words, it's somehow more engaging. That's wrong. Think about your best teacher you ever had. They were a good teacher because they got you excited. And they didn't get you excited by reading the textbook formally to you. And you know what doesn't work? It doesn't work to get people engaged manually. You cannot give a boring presentation that is very, very unengaging and then stop and go, any questions? Any questions? You know why? Because the answer always is no. Watch me. Ready? I'm the guy pretending to be you. And I'm not listening to you at all. And I'm on my phone. Hey, Iman, any questions? No. How hard was that? How hard was that for me? Very little effort, and I'm not re-engaged. Breaking your own presentation flow every few minutes to go, any questions? Anything? Horrible way to do it. If anything, stop presenting. If they're really not engaged, stop. It gets weird when there's silence, huh? Stop. And then bring up a conversation. Make it a conversation. Force them to mentally tune in again. So if you were all bored right now and all tuned out and this was a demo, I'd go, hey, David, man, I'm sorry. I felt like this was the thing I needed to show you based on the discovery call, but I feel like I'm out in left field here. In the last few minutes we have left, what do you think we should focus on? Should we focus on reports and dashboards, or is there something else? And I don't care what he says. Whatever he says, I go, oh, okay, why? And then we talk for 2 minutes. And then as soon as you get them engaged, go back to doing what you're doing, but hopefully do a better job. So keep their attention. Show them the intersection of the cool stuff you do that they actually need. Hopefully that lets you melt their faces and you can drop the mic and moonwalk out of there. All right, I'm going to stop, take a deep breath and see if you guys have any questions for me. That's the presentation.
We got a hand raised. First, before I get to Elio, thank you. That was hilarious and rewarding. I took some notes on discovery strategy, so pain versus process, present some objectives that they didn't even know they had, which is the value that they didn't even suspect, and you're giving that to them, which will differentiate you from the competition. And then I love to give them the demo twice. I'm going to start using that first as a table of contents. So really cool stuff. And yes, Stephen, I stopped sharing things in chat, so I didn't distract you from the presentation, because I realized that was counterproductive when you mentioned. I'm like, oh, yeah, I should not be doing that. So anywho, I will turn it over to Elio for a question or comment.
Iman, where have you been the last 9 years I've been at Salesforce? That was the best presentation I've ever heard, and believe me, I sat through a lot.
Thanks.
I feel like a student back in school. One question: could you share that deck with us?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, that's it. And the comment was, "Thank you. That was amazing."
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I really had to run it by David. Like, I haven't been in the military. You sure I'm allowed? So,
I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Lots of folks here are in the military.
Yeah, you had to calm me down, but I was so worried. I didn't want to do like any stolen valor or anything, you know?
No, you're good. You're good. So we're going to get into the questions that I prepared, but the point is not really for me to conduct an interview style session with Iman. It's mostly for you to ask some questions. So I'll stop as soon as I see some hands raised, or as soon as you start posting in chat. And to piggyback on what Elio said, we will post the slides. I've already got them. Iman graciously shared them with me. I'll post them on the YouTube channel in the description section as a link. And thank you, Annie. I'll let you go ahead and take the floor. Gotcha.
Perfect. Thank you, David. And Iman, thank you so much for being here. That was energetic. I have a big question for you. It was in college, and even now in my career, a lot of times people want to practice that presentation, and I have a hard time with that because I don't read scripts. Either I know my information or I don't, and I'm able to present because I've created that presentation or been involved with the presentation. So how do you get over the teams who want to read that script? How do you get past that and do like I do? I do a lot of it ad hoc, but then at the same time, when somebody asks me a question, I usually know the answer, or if I don't, I'm willing to say I don't know that answer and get back to you. So
yeah, all right. So dry runs. They're a necessary evil. I don't need dry runs. I've been presenting Salesforce for 15 years. I know what I'm going to say. I know I'm an expert on the topic, but they're necessary because that other person has to show that they're doing their job too. So if I've got a deal and it's $1 million deal that I'm working on, it's likely to go well. I'm probably going to do a great job and it's fine. But what happens if we do that demo and it's a train wreck? Everyone's going to start asking questions. What happened? What went wrong? What could we have done differently? And if that sales leader didn't do a dry run, they look bad. They have not done their due diligence. So I think early on, you need to kind of think about why you're being asked to do dry runs. Is it just for them to feel safe and calm, to be able to put their 2 cents in? If it is, just let them do it. If it's because they don't think you are actually going to deliver the message correctly for some reason, then I would drill in on the specifics of what that is. But for me, in my experience, I always had to do dry runs with sales leaders. You cannot do a dry run without one of them having an opinion on something. Make that bluer, make the dashboard bigger. They have to. You cannot bring people to a dry run, do the dry run, have everyone go, great, no changes. They have to put in their 2 cents. So what I'll do is I will control the dry run. I will offer up doing a dry run. I will invite you to the dry run. I will tell you, I'm not sure this or that. What do you think? So I will give them places where I want their opinion and guide them. So at the end of it, they feel like they double checked things and they put in their input. And if heaven forbid things went wrong, they tried to do a good job, right? They tried to do the right thing. What I won't do is be like, dry run? Okay, and then just show up and let them run the show. Because when they run the show, who knows what they're going to ask you to change? Who knows how they're going to ask you to change it? It tends to be less effective. So my advice is they're necessary evils. Make sure you let the person who wants it check the boxes that are important to them. And if anything, guide them in the dry run so they're less annoying.
Great
So a
question, Annie.
preset for the sell.
Yeah, like for example, Dreamforce keynote. You think they're gonna let me do that without a dry run? Is there
Probably
any
not.
scenario where they go, no driver, right? Now I could be the guy being like, don't you know who I am? But no, we got to do a drive. So sure, Dreamforce is like the most obvious example. $1 million deal. Do we do a dry run or not? 150K deal. Do we do a dry run or not? Right? And sometimes it's not even about me. Sometimes it's the sales guys new and they're worried about that person. And so the dry run just gets the whole team together. So what I'm saying is really think about why are they doing the dry run and then allow them to, you know, toggle some levers, but you control what levers. That seems to be the middle ground.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that was helpful.
You bring up an interesting point, Annie, and I wanted to kind of dig into it a little bit. And once we do that, we'll break for a quick photo of the group. And so you talked about, you know, scripted demos versus ad hoc demos. And, you know, from my limited experience, because I certainly have not been doing it for 15 years, been doing it for a little over a year, I've seen kind of two flavors of SEs. There's the SEs that do, you know, the ad hoc, and they might have a couple notes, right? Maybe a quarter page that they may glance at. And then they're talking basically off their memory, occasional glance at the notes, and it's very fluid, not scripted, right? And then there's SEs like me, and I'm the extreme case where I will write a 20 to 30 page script, and I will script everything I say down to the action. And I think there's value in both, right? Because they're two distinct skill sets. If you go to a trade show or if you go to an in-person customer demo, you can't have a scripted demo. You can't read off that sheet, and I know that. And so that's a separate skill set where you basically have to memorize what you're doing, become very comfortable with it, and just go ad hoc. But if you're doing virtual, like we do most of the time these days, I prefer the polished approach where I'm literally reading off of a script. I'm looking at the camera because my script is right under the camera, and I'm making eye contact. But, you know, I'm not diverging from my script. And so, you know, two options to do that, I think, and there's two areas where you can kind of use those, but they're not really interchangeable. And so I don't know, Iman, if you had some extra thoughts about that. I saw you smiling when I said scripted 20-pager.
You know, I don't care. Do whatever gives the best presentation. I want a good presentation. I want an engaging presentation. I want a presentation that's effective and not boring, right? So if you can do that while reading a script, do that. My best movies have actors that read scripts and they're memorized, but it doesn't seem that way, right? Me, I can't do that. If I read a script, you will see me reading the script to you. It's way worse. So do whatever works for you. The goal is for you to give an engaging presentations. It's not to read every word on the script correctly, right? If you read every word on the script, but do it in a monotonous tone that's a fail, right? So you need the presentation to be good. Some people just need some keywords. Some people need outlines. Some people script the whole thing, and it doesn't matter. Make a good presentation. You do it your way. But what I would say is the downside to having it fully scripted is what happens if your script's wrong? What happens if you got to pivot? What happens if 2/3 in or a third in, you got to go left and you should have gone right, you know, and you got to, so that can be a little bit tough. But ultimately, I don't care how you prepare. I care that your presentation doesn't make me want to put you in the background while I read.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I have had that happen where I've had to go off script because I lost their attention. And then, you know, the CIO asked a question that's not related to the demo at all. And I'm like, all right, I threw the script out and then we went ad hoc. But because I had written it all down and taken that, to be honest, extraordinary amount of time to really frame every thought, I kind of knew it cold and I was only going off the script because it was easier. It breeds that familiarity, in my opinion. But that's interesting. And I appreciate the finer point, which is do whatever it is that makes it successful for you so that you're telling an engaging story.
Well, I have a feeling that doing your first demo, you're going to rely on a script way more than doing your 200th demo, right? And it really depends on how different your product is. If it's the same product over and over and over again, you probably don't need the script after you got it, just built it, right? So a little bit of that.
Fact. Very, very true. Carrie, I see you've got your hand raised. Over to you for a question or comment.
Hi. Your energy level is contagious, so thank you. It's amazing. And secondly, I'm curious, what your experience has been these last few years as we've been in this totally different world of remote. I'm just kind of assuming you might be a people person. And so having that interaction is a little bit different, through a screen versus face-to-face.
Yeah. Do you mean with like customers or do you mean with like coworkers?
I think, well, anybody that you've been giving presentations to over the last 15 years, it's different giving it to people that can turn their screens off and, go do their thing, that type of thing.
Yeah. All right. So for the most part, I was in the office. I was in the tower, the San Francisco tower. And I did that all the way until the pandemic hit. Now I'm in my kid's room because I'm working from home now. So now I'm a remote employee. The most part, though, the great majority of my presentations were remote. It was GoToMeeting or webinar. It was a tool much like this. And we would travel a lot to be on site. I personally like the remote better. For me, traveling to go on site to see you in person very rarely made up for the cost in terms of time and like opportunity cost of what I could be doing. So it makes sense for the salespeople why they need to be out there and doing all that. But for me, I have a webinar tomorrow with 600 people coming, and I do that in my living room. It's easy. So for me, the scale has been really nice. And frankly, having everybody go, oh no, we got to do things online at scale has actually allowed my webinar series to grow a bit more and be more officially rolled into marketing and everything. I'm not just some random guy on his own. Also, it's weird to say, but I'm not really that much of a people person. Like, I'm the most outgoing introvert I think possible. Talking to people's like, you're all great. I'm happy to be here, but it's exhausting for me. Like, when you're not here, I'm gonna go sit down, be quiet, not say a word, just be reading something or hang out with my wife. So, not getting on a train, not sitting next to a bunch of people that ask me questions is easier for me. And my day-to-day ended up being random people walking by being like, hey, you know everything. What if? And then answer that question times 50. So for me, and I get that I'm a corner case, working remote's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. I don't think that's the answer you wanted, but that's the one.
No, it makes sense because I did webinars, were part of webinars forever and ever ago, and we would all gather in a conference room. And it took the admin forever to set things up and make sure passwords were right. And so it's definitely a whole different world. So I get it.
All right.
Excellent. And let me go back to chat.
Okay.
And Catherine asks, Iman, any tips for solution engineers new in their role? You stole the question from me. That's
so
awesome.
I've mentored a ton of new SCs, and I've got nothing but opinions. Yes. I actually think most SCs don't understand what the job is. I think they got the wrong job in mind. What is the job of a solution engineer? What do we do? Why does Marc Benioff pay for my salary? What do we do? Our job is to make deals bigger and to close faster. That is what SCs exist to do. We are not trainers. I'm not here to enable. I'm not onboarding. I'm not a consultant. I'm not support. So my job exists because salespeople need help making deals bigger and closing them faster. And if I don't help them do that, I'm not doing my job. And I think a lot of SCs get it twisted. They think their job is to help the customer understand the technology. That's not my job. That is what I do because it makes me more effective at my job by explaining how Salesforce helps you, by articulating the value it has to you, and you understanding it, you'll want to go buy it. I think if I get you excited about the technology and make you understand it, you'll want to go get it. Okay? But my job is not enablement. It is not onboarding. It's not building strategic relationships. None of that is the job. And so I think SCs get it confused out of the gate. And so if that is your job, how do you do that? Right? How do you make deals bigger and close them faster? And I think the way you have to do that is different based on your organization, the product you sell, the sales teams you're with. But the advice I would give you is make your sales team love you. Make them love you. I don't care what your demo is. I don't care what you do. I don't know what your product is. Your sales team better tell their manager that they close deals because of you. Their deals got bigger because of you. They want you on their demo. That's what you should do. And a big part of that is not playing a engineering role where you push back a lot. So a lot of SEs that are new don't understand this relationship with the sales team. And so the salesperson will come up and go, Iman, I need a demo and I need it next week and I need this. And then you know what the SE does? They try to qualify. Oh yeah, well, who's going to be there? Have you talked to them yet? Do they have need? Is there a decision maker? Is there budget? What's the timing? Not yet. Go away. And you kind of punt away until the deal's ready. You know what that does? That doesn't get you better deals or more deals or bigger deals. That gets salespeople thinking you're hard to work. So I think the key is to understand that you work with you. I exist as a service for them. I help them. And so at the end of the day, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. My dashboards, my deals, people don't remember. I've been on some of the largest deals in the company. It doesn't matter. People forget, okay? But they remember how you treated them. They remember how you made them feel. If an AE is like freaking out over a salesperson's freaking out over a deal because it's so important to them, I'll make it important to me because it's important to them. That is what a partnership looks like. I will burn the midnight oil on their smallest, dumbest deal because they know I got their back. And then you know what happens? That person, all of a sudden, 5, 6, 10 years later, runs the sales organization over there and is the head of sales over here and is the director of sales over there. And they remember that you cared about helping them on something that was important. So my advice to the new SE is actually understand what your job is and make your sales team love you. And if you do that in your first year, you're golden.
Great question. And I love the answer because it is absolutely a partnership. So appreciate you putting it in context. We've got a fun question from Lindsay, and then we got one from David, which is, probably equally fun, but Lindsay's first. Iman, have you met Marc Benioff, and how many times and when and where?
No, he doesn't really know my name. I stood cowering in an elevator with him. I presented to Brett once on a project I'm doing, but no, not really hanging out with Benioff. He's walked into rooms I'm presenting things on, but no, haven't interacted with him directly. He's a giant, by the way. Maybe he looks normal size. He's like 6'7". He's huge. Yeah. So he's like 300 pounds. He's a big guy. So you don't expect it, but you stand in an elevator and you're like, there's 4 Marc Benioffs, and he's a billionaire, and he's your boss's boss's boss. So quite intimidating. I listened to that Icarus story, and I'm not trying to get too close to the sun. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not getting over there. He needs me. There's a big problem. If Marc Benioff's asking for me, something horrible is happening.
Thanks for the question, Lindsay. All right, David asks, has the nature of demos changed since COVID made demos more virtual? Is it harder to keep attention without the in-person interaction? Great question.
Yes and no. I think it's changed people's expectations and willingness, but I don't think it's really changed the mechanics of online sales. I mean, if you've been doing demos online, they exist. Zoom existed. GoToWebinars, WebEx, they existed before the pandemic. And I don't think the pandemic really changed how I do things. It just means more people are comfortable turning on their webcam now. You know what I mean? 5 years ago, webcams weren't a thing people turned on all the time, right? Now it's pretty common. Now a customer doesn't feel like you're, giving them lesser service if you don't drive to their office. This is a little bit more convenient. So I would say it's changed expectations of when we would travel and for what we would travel, but it hasn't really changed how I do my demos because most of the time, were always online. So I always had to worry about people paying attention and zoning out and putting on YouTube behind the scenes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to transition to some of my questions while you think about some follow-on questions that you have for Iman. And so we kind of had the dessert before the main course, and the dessert was, how do you do discovery and how do you give amazing presentations and demos? That's the part that I was most excited about. So over to the main course and talking about the solution engineering role in general. And so you mentioned during your introduction, you've been at Salesforce for nearly 15 years. How do you personally measure your success as a solution engineer? And because obviously you're not the average solution engineer, how do you think new solution engineers should measure their success? So maybe a progression.
Yeah. In the words of the notorious B.I.G., if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Everything I do, I better be able to tie a dollar amount to. I'm in sales. I'm in the sales org. That is what I do. Everything I do better generate revenue or push revenue forward, or I'm not doing my job. So now my webinar series, every webinar that I do has a marketing campaign tied to it. After the webinar's over, there's a recording, and everyone that watches the recording is captured. And then we measure the influence that I have on pipe throughout the company. So for me, it's always about measuring success. Because at the end of the day, if that dollar amount is not tied to my name, someone can be like, what's he doing here? The further away you are from revenue, it's a lot harder to justify your value and ask for resources and make sure you feel really safe. I know exactly how much money I move the needle here at Salesforce. I don't think anybody's going to fire me because they feel like I move so much more money than they pay me. I think I've got a job that's cushy and they will not mess with it, you know? So it's all about that output. For in USC, there's two KPIs. There's the soft ones and the hard ones. Every solution engineering org, every sales org is going to have hard KPIs. How many phone calls to make? How many demos do you do? How many discoveries do you have? Because they have to be able to rationally explain what their resources are doing, right? So whatever the KPIs are that are on the dashboard, you just have to do them. If it's number of demos, number of calls, do that. You just have to. And then if you're new, and then the other side is the softer things, right? I would say your goal should be to have your sales team and your sales leaders sing your praises, right? And so if every quarter you do a check-in or something like that, you want to know that they're saying great things about you to your solution engineering leaders. So I would say always tie any project you do back to a dashboard that influences revenue. And if you're an SE, just follow the KPIs they gave you because that's what they're saying does a good job, and make sure your sales team agrees. You do that, you're doing good.
Awesome. That makes sense. Thank you. I wanted to ask, so obviously you don't have any problem with self-confidence, with public speaking, with engaging. Introvert or not, it seems to come naturally to you. So what's your advice to someone who wants to be a solution engineer, but who may lack the confidence or speaking skills to be able to really communicate with customers?
Every SE, to a certain extent, suffers from what's that thing where you're pretending to be something? What's that symptom?
Imposter
syndrome. Yeah. Every SE I know has the sense of imposter syndrome. I have it, you know? So like, I think everyone's going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning. You're not going to have confidence necessarily. If you're super confident, you're probably just not reading the world right. Like, you probably should not be very confident in your new role that you're not good at. But you need to be able to be good at, you know? So I think you need to decide, is this path something you could be good at? And the way I would have you think about that is, can you even tell a story to your friends? Most people can be engaging to their friends. Can you tell a story to your friends? Do they listen? Can you make them pay attention? Because if you can talk to your friends and you can tell a story and they're following along and they laugh when they're supposed to laugh, then you can do it. You can do that, but just do it about a technical product. Just have that same ability to tell that story. You can apply that. But if you really don't like talking to people, if you have this weird problem with sales and you think sales is slimy or gross or just there's something weird about it, then yeah, it's not for you. Sales is not for you. And if it's not for you, you would be better off in another role that's less stressful and doesn't have the same requirements on it. But the confidence will just come with time after your 2,000th quarter close or whatever. You'll eventually just get more comfortable.
Yeah, practice makes better, for sure. Carrie asks the question, what are your favorite presentation tools?
Ooh. I really like mind maps. So if I'm gonna present to a group of people, what I'll do is I'll do this. Get a mind map going, and then I'll show it to you.
Awesome.
All right, here we go. Sorry, I didn't expect to do this. Something
Demo
like
time.
Yeah, so something like this. So I'll have a mind map, and I'll talk to a customer, and let's say they're just some company, okay? here's what I'll typically do for like my discoveries. I'll have like attendees. All right, so there's David, there's Iman, and I'm the SC. You know, we've got some other people and their roles. And then what I'll do is I'll use this to drive the conversation. So I might ask you, like, what are your goals for today? Right? What do you want to get out of today? Better understanding of the SE role. Oh, okay. And then what I'll do is I'll use this by like zooming in. I'll be like, well, what do you mean by that? What does that mean, better understanding of the role? Right? Oh, is it really about KPIs? Is it about new SEs? Is it about presentations? Oh, well, why? Why is it about and you know, so this visual thing I like, because when you're presenting, you're likely to lose people's interest when there isn't a lot of stuff changing on the screen. And when you're doing discovery, there isn't a lot of stuff to show them. And so people will, if you're not asking them a question, they're going to tune out. So I'm looking at all the faces on here and I see like 28, there are 30 plus people, right? I can't see all your faces. I'm assuming half of you have me in the background and you're checking email. You know what I mean? Like I always assume that. That's kind of my fear going into it. So I try to have something visually changing on the screen kind of all the time just to keep people engaged. And then also, let's assume like I'm just picking a name, like Megan. Okay, you're top of screen for me. No, not picking on you in particular, but Megan's here. So if I have a question for Megan, I can tell she was tuned out or wasn't paying attention. When I call her out by name, having something like the mind map there and having the text right there quickly can have her snap back. And I know, Megan, what do you think of that? And now she can kind of quickly save face a little bit. Also, I'm bad at names, so just having people's names and having it all right there and everyone can see my name. Like that kind of stuff just really made it a lot easier. So mind maps, that particular tool was called Mind Node, and it's for Macs and iPhones and iPads. But they make a whole bunch of different tools like that. I would just say the ones that I like are the, take notes visually with the customer. And at the end, I'll give them my notes. Hey, you want a copy? Here you go. And they see me taking notes as they're talking. I've gotten my best discovery calls that way. And if you make a mistake, like you put in 15 instead of 50, they'll be like, oh, no, that's a 15. That's 15. And so you just know that they know you're paying attention. Plus, I would stay super engaged because I knew 30 people are watching me spell and ask questions and read. And, it's hard to tune out and not pay attention when your screen is on display. Oh, yeah.
I love that. And I wish, I'm wishing right now I didn't have a PC. I got to find something that is.
They make a bunch of PC ones, browser-based. There's 1,000 of these. But The type of diagram is a mind map.
Yeah, I used them. I have them actually on my iPhone, which is strange because I have a PC. iPhone's weird, but I use them for camping, for making checklists. I'd never thought to use them for discovery sessions, but now I'm absolutely going to include that because then you have an artifact that is much more visually engaging than a boring quick document that says attendees, yada, yada, and all like I was doing earlier today. That's phenomenal. So best practice, I'm going to use that. We've got a question from Michelle. We got about 6 minutes left, so if you do have questions, please get them in chat now. And she asked, do you ever salt the presentation group to have someone ask a revealing question for others to hear the answer? It's kind of stage the questions.
This is the only webinar I've done that. David wanted to have some questions to help seed, but no, when I do a technical product webinar, no. I either explained it and you have questions or you don't. I don't need to fake ask technical questions. You either want to know more about it or you don't. Have a good one. I'm past the point of faking questions to get people engaged. I find that if I need to do that, I wasn't very engaging and there are probably other things I should tweak instead, personally. The engaged audience is engaged or not. And I have found that the seeding the questions never really made a big difference for me.
Gotcha. Okay. And thanks, Priscilla, for putting that in there. I'm going to check that out, the mindmeister.com, assuming that's probably a plugin or a website. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. All right, so we've got just 5 minutes left. And if you have a question posted, I'll give you preference for sure. While we're waiting for that, I do want to ask a question about sales acumen, because you said you came in from college, and I'm assuming that you weren't selling in college. So how did you acquire your sales skills, and how might you suggest others kind of do the same if they're just starting out in a sales role?
It's funny. I worked all through college. I had a bunch of retail jobs. I had permits to work since I was 14. I just always worked little retail gigs. It really is just understanding people. understand that people want different things and they want to buy in different ways. How I would have a conversation with the way I would have this conversation with a new SC, right, is you're an SC and you got 2 customers, you've got to have different demos for them, right? If you were a car salesman, you have 2 people come in on the lot, and you have a young 20-year-old guy and he's by himself, you're going to have a different conversation with that person than me and my pregnant wife and our 1 kid in arm walking in. We're probably interested in 2 different things. We probably care about 2 different things. So in the beginning, you don't understand how to navigate these conversations. You don't know that things really need to be divergent. So in the beginning, I just say, find who's very good and listen and plagiarize. Like basically steal the best from the people around you and reuse it. And the only other advice I'd give you is don't try to sell. Don't try to be salesy. A lot of times people think selling is somehow manipulating people. And it's, first of all, you're bad at it. You're going to be really bad at it. And the people you're selling to are probably people that are better at selling than you are. And so when you try to get all weird and salesy, they can smell that a mile away. And you're bad at it. And guess what? I don't want to buy from people that are manipulative and weird and I don't trust. That's the worst thing you could do. So do not ruin that trust with the customer. Be genuine, be honest, be transparent, be open. That is going to be the best thing you can do as you're new to sales and you have no idea what you're doing and how to do it. You're never going to get in trouble being open and honest and transparent. But when you start being cagey about, and you try, like hiding your notes to try and change the way this process is going to go, everyone can smell what you're doing. It's not like they don't know you're a salesperson, and it just ruins the relationship. So I would say early on, focus on good relationships and follow the best people around and get their feedback. And also, if you do work with a sales team or a sales manager, every meeting ask for feedback and don't get offended. The first 7 years I was here, every meeting, what could I have done better or different on that call? Whatever they say thank you and remember it, and then try to incorporate it later.
And thank you to Marina for suggesting Lucid Chart. I use that for entity relationship diagrams to kind of model a data architecture. I had not thought of using it for discovery in a session, so that's interesting as well. We've got about 1 minute left.
David, before I ask the question, so before I lose everyone,
sure.
If you're interested, you can find me at salesforce.com/Iman's webinars. You just sign up for webinars that way, and you can also find links to my.
Before we do close, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Ira. You've got the closing comment or question for the day. Iris, over to you.
Thank you so much for being here, Iman. I love your energy, as everyone said, but what you're saying is exciting. What you're saying is you're using your voice to also draw us in and make us interested in what you have to say. But I'm saying, I want to ask, if you don't have that personality, and like we all like to think we're a little bit way, a little bit woe, but in reality we're a little bit shy. If you want to work possibly on that education piece, what kind of education would you work to give you that confidence so that when you got in front of people, you were a little bit?
That's a really good question. I'm happy you asked that. To be an engaging presenter is not to do it the way I do it. Don't do it the way I do it. Don't be, a telemarketer, one of those salespeople, like a ShamWow salesperson on TV. That's not the way to necessarily be engaging. You got to be true to yourself, right? You got to be you, right? And if your energy is not that, don't do that at all. Some of the best presenters that I like are very slow. They're very chill. But when they speak, their words carry more weight. How they speak. I'm changing my tone right now just a little bit, but you don't have to be a high energy, flex your abs, scream into the screen person to get people to listen to you. But what you need to do is understand how to get people to listen to you, right? So, and that does mean tweaking something in how you present. And I don't know what that is, but it doesn't mean add more energy. It might mean you use your time poorly. It might mean that your introductions take forever and no one cares about the introduction. Get to the content. Like without seeing your recording, it's hard to give you explicit feedback. But I think that what I'm telling you is don't tie high energy to high engagement. That's one way to get good engagement. What you need to do is really just think about a time where you told a story to people you're close with, friends, family. Think of any story that is your story, that you believe, that you know, that happened to you, that you tell people, and they listen. When you do that, how do you speak? What do you do differently? Right? There's a way where you tell a story and people care, and there's a way you tell a story and it in one ear and out the other. You got to find your way to do that. And if you can do that with family members, you're tapping into that same muscle. That's what it is, okay? So you got to figure out how to be a storyteller using your own voice. And if you don't have energy to go with, you better lean on content. You better be an expert, because if you're not the expert and it's boring, I'm not sure why I'm listening to you, right? So the people that I tend to listen to are either hilarious and entertaining, which we see on TV and stuff all the time, or I'm really interested in what they have to say, and I'll sit slowly and patiently through it.
Thank you so much.
You know,
yeah,
well,
my advice, I didn't say this earlier, but what I did early on, record yourself, record a presentation, okay? Yeah. And then force yourself to sit through the whole thing, okay? And then just listen to your own brain and see how long you sit there before you go, God, how long is this thing? Or before you go, let me check my email. Or before you pull out, if you can't pay attention to your own presentation, what hope do the rest of us mere mortals have? You know what I mean? So like when you record your own presentation, I don't care what it is, if you can't get to the end of it, think about where you burned out, okay? 10 minutes before that, everyone else was gone. Everyone else was gone well before you were gone, okay? So record it. And I know this sounds really silly to say, but like I'll watch my own webinar and I'll be like, wow, I watched the whole thing. That was great. Like if I can make it through my own webinar, I nailed it. But if I'm sitting there and I'm, God, let me check my email, then I know I lost the audience. You got to do the same thing for yourself and assume everyone else is hungry, stressed out, tired, and doesn't want to hear it.
Great advice. And thankfully, I don't do much talking during these sessions, so it doesn't factor into to my viewership. But I think you were engaging, so that's going to definitely guarantee folks are going to not check their phone when they watch the recording on YouTube. I appreciate it. Before we do close, I wanted to thank Iman for spending the past hour with us to talk to us about solution engineering best practices, all the way from how to give the best discovery session, pain versus process, through presentations, through demos, and then just some general wisdom and guidance on sales and on speaking and engagement with customers. So thank you, Iman. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everybody. Feel free to reach out. You can always get a hold of me. Not hiding from anyone. It's nice talking to you all. Thanks for having me.
I just wanted to close by saying thank you to all of you as well for spending your time with us on this Wednesday evening in the spirit of community, mentorship, and learning. And hopefully we'll see you again next week. Elio will be co-hosting, and looking forward to it. Thank you.